is a great lesson idea because it introduces children to looking at historical artefacts in a way that they can access. An aim is to try and encourage children to see evidence in the terms of things that were left behind. So this was left behind, what does it tell us about this person? Go on, Emily, open up the catches. It's a child's suitcase. It holds things that the children can relate to as historical things. Yeah, we've got all sorts of things in here. Pick something out, Emily.
The suitcase was different, and I thought that there must be a girl because she's got a dress.
Think about how that book will help you to discover about the owner of the suitcase. The great thing about this activity is that it introduces children to raising questions and looking at history as an investigation, like a detective inquiry. So they're immediately raising questions and speculating about what this person was like and how they could build up a picture in their minds of the owner of the suitcase.
What is your name?
What's your address?
Another question.
How did you lose the suitcase?
To do this lesson, you need to get together some useful items that could belong to one person. Ideally, I think a child. In this case, we used a child who was younger than the children in the class. So they related quite well to the items. We chose clothes, we chose things that would relate to hobbies or toys or interests. There was a photograph album, postcards, birthday cards, invitations, anything that you think would be a collective identity of a child.
Their pants, and they look like they may be like, you may be able to wear them in the water because you've got a string so you can tie them a bit tighter.
Decisive, right?
Because they might be somewhere hot. Because we've got sandals and glasses.
What's really enjoyable in doing a lesson like this is that it's children actually actively doing history, and it's dominantly oracy and talking and communicating, speaking and listening. We did actually give the children a sheet that they could fill in to write down information that they felt was important. But most of the children, their learning was through talking to each other, through looking at the objects and from sharing and gathering the information.
She's 6 years old.
History is not always about like the Vikings and stuff, but it's also things like last Christmas or something that's recent but was that you've done before in the past.
Her name is Rose and she likes cats. Her full name is Rose Nicole. She likes discs to go in the car.
Good historians always ask their questions, try and find out the answers, and remember that it has to be evidence-based, right? So you need to try and remember to give a reason why.
Well, we found out that she was 6 because we found a badge saying I am 6 today.
We found out she likes maths because there was a maths book and it was full of activities.
We found a dress on table 5 that had 7 to 8 years old on it.
I enjoyed it a lot because I thought it was different than doing normal lessons.
To me, this task it's like pebbles in a pond. You might do it once, you might do it again slightly differently, and each time the children revisit it, they will be developing their skills of questioning and hypothesising and working together and communicating. A key thing, I think, is that the children can feed back at the end what they've found.
She lived in Devon and her uncle sent a postcard from Wales.
Ideally, if the children can be practically involved in doing things, that's the perfect, or towards the perfect answer of how to approach history.
This is a great lesson idea for introducing archaeology to the children. Hello, I'm Tom Boudel, Year 4 teacher at St Gregory's Catholic Primary, and this is one of the dig boxes that we're using. I'm going to show you how easy they are to make. I've layered up a few different layers of soil. Important to get the different layers right in terms of the oldest artefacts at the bottom, so I'm going to pop a couple of my Roman bits. Down at the bottom of my dig box, we've got some Anglo-Saxon artefacts. My top layer, I'm going to be focusing on some of the Victorian artefacts. And I've got a little medicine bottle here, some marbles, some pottery, and a clay pipe. I'm going to finish off with a final layer of slightly different coloured soil to hopefully give the children that idea of the different layers of soil. There's my Victorian artefacts being covered up by my final layer of topsoil. The children will then have the opportunity to come and to actually excavate from the top layer right down to the bottom layer some of these different artefacts. So it's simple as that. That's my dig box. A table at a time, you're going to come up, you're going to excavate an artefact of your own. That's one of the trowels that they'd use to do their digging. Have a little look, dig out a little bit of sand and try and find something.
It felt really exciting because I knew that I was going to find something, but I didn't know what it was going to be.
Take those two back and have a little think about what those two bits might be. The key principle of the way the boxes are set up with the different layers is to really get that understanding with the children that that's the way archaeology works and that each layer will represent a different time period. So in a very simple term, obviously we wouldn't get such a nice distribution of artefacts, but that each layer of the earth will reveal something about a different period in history.
It's like pretty fancy patterns.
It's fancy and it's got good,
Nice little patterns.
really interesting patterns. We've been taking educated guesses on what we think that could have been used for.
We think it's like a candle holder. Yeah, part of a candle holder.
I think it's really important for the children to be able to get their hands on real artefacts while they're doing this activity. That helps build the understanding that these are real things used by real people and that it's not just a story that we're telling them, it's something that 100, 200 years ago was actually happening.
I think it's really fascinating, I think.
Yeah, I think it's like a bone of some sort of creature.
I think this was used in a nursing home for people who were sick, so I think it's a medicine bottle.
This is the first artefact that they've been looking at. They're going to tell all of you what they think it might be. At the end of the lesson, we then gathered around and heard back from some of the children about what they'd found, what they thought it might be.
We think it's probably a candlestick holder. I thought it was a good luck charm. I thought it was a badge. I thought it was the front of a Greek shield.
The era it might have come from, how it had ended up there, and a final question that they wrote down was, if you could ask this artefact a question, what would you ask it and what do you think the answer might be?
The question I'd ask it is, when were you made? And I think the answer would be in the 1920s. I like that we got to do some fun stuff. It was the most interesting lesson I've had. I liked it today because it was brilliant, because it made me thought about the people in the olden days using it. It made me think, and I tried to be a lot like an archaeologist and be a detective. I like doing stuff like that. I really like it.
I think this lesson is really good for giving the children an opportunity without worrying about whether they're giving me a right or wrong answer, but giving them the opportunity to speculate, to use their creativity, to use what they already know and apply it to the situation that we've put them in this lesson.
Out of 10. 10. Out of 100, 100. Best lesson I've done this year.
We were inspired by the Staffordshire Hoard and went on to make our own artefacts to put them on display as a class museum.
I never even knew what the Staffordshire Hoard was, but when I started doing this, I've learnt loads about it.
The Staffordshire Hoard was found by a metal detector. He had asked permission to go onto a farmer's land. He found this amazing collection. The find is the greatest find of Anglo-Saxon gold that has ever been discovered. This is a class museum and it's just a great way for engaging children in looking at artefacts, making them, presenting and interpreting them to others.
All of these are from the Staffordshire Hoard.
Creating this museum was good fun for everybody. The children had just an afternoon in which they created the guide, the tickets, the artefacts,
Some are made out of clay, and some are made out of plasticine, and some have got glitter on.
What we've done this morning, just before you came in, was set up the museum.
The receptionist is quite nice.
Welcome to Year 3's museum. Would you like a leaflet to guide you, and there would be people around to help you? I'm Emily and I greeted the people when they came in.
Hello. Don't touch anything and please try not to rip the paper.
My name's Sam and I'm a security guard.
Would you like a magnifying lens?
My name is Ellie and my role was the shop assistant.
We chose the roles collectively. I asked the children what roles they thought would be involved in running a museum. Going to sort the tickets out. Casper? Most knew about guides, most knew about security people, most knew about perhaps somebody who would be involved as a reception person, welcoming or issuing tickets. And we just pulled the ideas. As people come in, Emily and Ellie, right, you need to be welcoming. What else do you need to do, do you think?
Smiling.
Smiling, yes, we want people to be cheerful about it. In this case, we created our own artefacts, and that was part of the joy of doing it. We spent an afternoon looking at photographs from the hoard, and the children could choose the material they wanted to model them in. Welcome to the wonderful Historical Museum of Year 3, open the 17th of March. Enjoy it.
I thought it was brilliant because I would never thought I'd be able to pretend to work in a museum, and I thought it's a great activity for the people like me. I'm encouraging myself to not be embarrassed, like if I don't want to talk out loud or anything, so I can just say what I want to them, to greet them, and I thought it was really good, to be honest.
In many respects, the idea snowballed because our initial feeling was that we would just have our classroom museum and we would invite one more class to come and look. But when it was mentioned, it was accepted with such enthusiasm by everybody that I think virtually all ages within the school came along.
If you want to go out to Wales over here.
I enjoyed it because it's just meeting new people, and I saw one of my friends here.
I saw a cross that had gems on.
I'm amazed that we have done such a lot in what is a relatively short space of time. One afternoon creating and the next morning presenting the finds. And it just shows what we can do when we're enthusiastic and determined.
Please be careful on your way out.